This is a Purple Line train to Linden. Doors open on the left at the Baha'i Temple. He feels at the very least mischievous
There's
about
like
it.
not one word that's spelled right in there.
No.
That's so weird.
It's the way that you speak Chaucer's English is you shove cotton balls in your mouth and then just say the words.
Well, folks, welcome back to the Chicago Transcendence Authority, the CTA. I am Andy Johnston, and I am here, of course,
With Benjamin Juris. And Andy, I don't know if you've noticed as of late, but there seems to be a very strange and mystifying building up along the North Shore.
And we're not just talking about the Wirt Center for the Performing Arts.
No, though it is strange and it doth mystify. We are instead talking about, according to you, the only building north of Chicago that you can get a real good look at from a Chicago boat on the lake.
Right, yeah, I'm a riverboat tour guide, and I was out on the lake today, and I noticed there was sort of what looked like a UFO maybe had landed on Chicago's far north shore. I could hardly see it, though.
Mm-hmm. Well, yes, nestled between the Lake Michigan on one side and apparently a hydroelectric plant on the other.
Yeah, the Jardine plant. Oh, no, you're talking about the other one, yes.
Yeah. There sits what is not, in fact, a paper-lace structure, but is instead the Baha'i House of Worship.
Oh, yes, I've seen signs for this on Sheridan.
Indeed. Yes, the Baha'i House of Worship, easily accessible from the Linden Purple Line,
Right.
is a strange and fascinating building with an even stranger history here in Chicago.
Right, so, I mean, I've seen it. You know, we went to Northwestern.
Mm-hmm.
This is a difficult building to miss when you're
Yeah.
It's in Wilmette, right? Officially.
Yeah, just over the border.
Yeah, of Evanston. It's this sort of like beautiful, ornately carved. Is it granite marble? It's white. It's this heptagonal building, 7-sided.
Nine sides.
9.
Yes.
Nonagonal.
Nonagonal. I don't even know.
Nonagonal?
Novonatal?
Nonagonal sounds like a town in Wisconsin.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to Mom and Pop's in Nonagonal today.
Oh, yeah, down in Nonagonal. But it's just gorgeous building.
It's
very
beautiful.
well-kept gardens.
Yes. It's the kind of place that you take someone on a date when you simultaneously are like, I don't really know what we're doing, but also this will impress them.
Right. And you're like, I want to go there.
Yeah.
So if the date turns out bad.
At least you saw the pretty place.
Right. So what's this? I've seen it, but what's the story?
Yes. So the Baha'i House of Worship is, as the name would suggest, a temple for the Baha'i community. But the Baha'is they were not founded in Chicago.
Okay.
Shockingly. The story of the Baha'is takes us back to 1844 in Persia.
Ah, a good year.
Yep, nothing bad was happening in the world in 1844.
No comment.
So, it was on this day, the day in late May, that a Shia Muslim cleric, Mullah Hussein, was set to meet with a very strange man from the countryside. So he journeys into this man's home, and seated there is a figure, clothed in green robes, with a very tall black hat.
My God, it's Gary Busey.
No, it's his cousin.
Oh.
Yes. And this man, cousin of Gary Busey, he had, very thin beard, very eyes that were seeing something profound that was not in the room with you. His gaze seemed fixed on another world, and he spoke with a musical voice to this young cleric. And he, there on the floor, told him that he was, in fact, the gate.
I'm the key master. Like you seen Ghostbusters?
I've seen clips. I actually haven't seen the
It's
movie.
like that. It's like Rick Moranis. He sort of loses it, and he starts going around saying he's the keymaster, and he's looking for the doormaster.
I mean, not terribly different. Like, if I'm understanding Ghostbusters correctly.
I think you are.
Okay.
Only the keymaster and the doormaster, it's implied that they need to have some sort of conjugation. Which I don't think is true in this case.
No, which would be very interesting considering who the gate ends up opening to.
Okay.
So the gate, or in...
Gary Busey's cousin.
Yeah, Gary Busey's cousin, who shall heretofore be known as the Bob, or the Gate in Farsi.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard of the Bob in
Yes.
my religious studies time.
Indeed.
Not to call him Gary, but he's an important figure.
Yes. A prophet in his own right, and a big figure in what will become Baha'i. But this gate was situated in a particular context. So, Persia, Iran, the epicenter for Shia Islam in the world, as opposed to Sunni Islam.
Right.
Yeah.
And those two branches get along.
So well.
Right. Mm-hmm. Whenever there's branches,
Yep.
they always get along in religion.
Yes, and these best buddies. To summarize a lot of history very quickly, the Shia basically believed that after the Prophet Muhammad left the earth, there was a succession crisis over who should lead the Muslim community, and so the Shias, the Shiat Ali, the party of Ali, believed that it should the leadership should transfer from one member of the family of the Prophet to the next. And so the Prophet's son-in-law and cousin, Ali, was appointed the first imam by the Shias, and this continued on for a few imams to come. Many different sects, depending on different factors, but the predominant one that we're dealing with is 12er Shiism, that believed that there were 12 imams.
Okay.
And that the last one, the 12th, did not die, but went into occultation, into a kind of like spiritual hiding. So he has not died, but he is hidden from us.
Okay.
And so they believe that at the end of time, this figure, the 12th Imam, who will be known as Al-Mahdi, phrase which you might recognize if you've seen Dune 2 recently.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So other than being known as the Lisan al-Ghaib,
Right.
which is another Muslim term, you will occasionally hear Paul referred to someone in passing as Al-Mahdi.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, as it is written.
As it is written, as was foretold. And so this figure will return with Jesus to sort of usher in the end times.
He's Jesus' buddy?
He's Jesus' buddy.
That's kind of fun.
The Apocalypse is a buddy cop film between Al-Mahdi and Jesus.
I'm sort of picturing Jesus shows up all clad in whatever he's wearing on that day.
Yeah.
And then sort of the Mike Wazowski to Jesus's Sully is and I'm here too. I'm also here. And Jesus is like, being Jesus, he's like, this is fine. I can share this moment. Guys, give him a controller. It's his turn.
Exactly. And now you perfectly understand Islam.
Great.
Yeah.
In terms of Jesus.
Yes. Very Christocentric view of Islam.
Hey, this is Western religious studies.
You're not wrong.
It's all Christocentric.
Yeah. Anyhow, basically, through a variety of prophecies, it sort of established that, there would be a figure, the gate of the 12th Imam, like the sort of forerunner, his John the Baptist figure.
Okay.
Who's sort of like, and so that's sort of who, the Bob is announcing himself as. So
not the Al-Shakti, that's
Al-Mahdi.
Al-Mahdi.
Yeah.
But the announcer for the Al-Mahdi.
Right. Right now. Because then, after a few years of, going around, they spread the message, Bobism takes place, followers of the gate. And, this, they start breaking Sharia law. They start, all the plays from the Messianic playbook. Like, end times are coming, rules are changing. Like, we're leading in, like, the end of the age. Eventually, the Bab reveals himself to be Al-Mahdi himself. Not just the gate, but the prophet in the flesh.
That's that old rigmarole.
Uh-huh.
That old chestnut.
Indeed, it's like, I was the forerunner of the prophet. Psych, I am the prophet. Or the imam, in this case. Mm-hmm. And this, you would imagine with the Shah of Iran and the Shia clergy are clearly having a wonderful time with this, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, no problems. In fact, this leads to a whole lot of conflict and persecution and violence between a whole bunch of groups.
A real religion cocktail.
Indeed. Which results, eventually, on July 9th, 1850, 6 years after the Bab, makes his debut on the world stage, he and one of his followers, who wanted to be martyred alongside him, are taken from their imprisonment under the Shah and are tied up to a wall with their arms attached to this wall by a rope, and they're set before a firing squad. Firing squad loads up their guns, takes aim at the Bab and his follower. Round of shots go off, and once the smoke clears, the Bab and his follower are standing there, the ropes being cut by the bullets, the two of them completely unscathed. The Shah freaks out, his commander orders a second round of shots fired, and this eventually does do the Bab and his follower in. But there were, and this is the thing that we have actually very good record of, because there were a lot of international commentators who were at this event, because, the Bab, it's not every day that, like, a religious movement really takes root.
Like, just in case this guy's right.
Right.
Let's see if something weird happens.
Yeah, this is also like when the Shah was in power, and so Iran had a somewhat cozier relationship with the international community.
Sure.
And so, but there are a lot of international commentators who personally bore witness to this. Of course, this was viewed as a miracle. This continued to ignite a bunch of fires in the Bab community. Eventually, after, in the wake of this, after some, young radical Babis try to assassinate the Shah, he sets out a whole major persecution campaign against the Babs. And eventually, one particular member would be taken into prison. And it should be noted that before the Bab died, he said that following him, there would be the one whom God would make manifest.
Okay.
Who would, take his place in leading the community. And this one would eventually reveal himself to be Baha'u'llah.
Okay. It seems sort of like a vague succession principle.
Kinda, yeah, because, to make a long story short, Baha'u'llah was the guy who ends up succeeding the Bab. However, his, half-brother, tried to make himself the leader of the community, but he wasn't particularly charismatic. And so then Baha'u'llah kind of, superseded him and was just like, hey, actually, I'm the guy who's supposed to be in charge.
I'm that guy.
I'm that guy. I had a bunch of revelations while I was in prison. I got released, and I'm that guy.
I'm the guy.
I'm the guy. And so he goes, he announces this. He's profoundly charismatic. He has a fabulously luscious beard.
That'll do it.
Which I'm sure helps.
I think you gotta have the beard.
Yeah. How many great religious founders do you know without a beard?
Buddha.
I will argue that Buddha is the exception that proves the rule. Because he's notable for not having a beard, isn't he?
Right. I guess so. Confucius had facial hair.
Yeah.
And that's arguable if that's a religion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they all have beards.
They all have beards.
They really do.
Mm-hmm. Like, think about it.
Maybe the pharaohs.
Maybe, but
like their gods don't have beards.
Their gods don't have beards, but they also have those like chin things, and I'm like, I don't know what that's supposed to be.
I guess so, but the Sumerians.
Yeah.
Moses, of course.
Moses.
Jesus. The prophet.
The prophet. We have I feel like at least a good amount of the figures coming out of Hinduism are bearded. At least all of the gurus.
A good couple of the Hindu gods are monkeys, and that's like as beard as you can get.
That's like your body's beard.
Let's keep going.
Yes. Anyhow, he takes over, and Baha'u'llah is, eventually, like, he's what really takes us from, the Baha'i religion and movement into the Baha'i faith.
So he's sort of, to be comparative again.
Yeah, of course.
Kind of the Brigham Young to the Bob's Joseph Smith.
Fair enough.
Ignoring everything else about Brigham Young.
Ignoring the everything else.
In terms of pure relation. Maybe the Paul to Jesus is Jesus.
Yeah. There you go. I would say, so in this, he's very much, in the way that he succeeds, very much the Paul to Jesus.
Or the Solomon to David.
Yeah. And so, because maybe part of that might help because, he does eventually, because the Bob very much he actually somewhat becomes more of a gate once Baha'u'llah takes to the scene, because Baha'u'llah is really the main prophet of the Baha'i faith. And so although, what I should say is that the term would not be a prophet for the Baha'is, actually.
Oh.
It would be a manifestation of God.
I like that. It's like the corporate term.
Mm-hmm.
We're managing synergistic solutions here.
Different kind of manifestation.
Okay.
Manifestations of God, it's not like how Jesus incarnates, but it's more kind of like, this person is like, honestly, a bit more like the Virgin Mary, where it's like they are perfectly reflective of the light of God.
Gotcha.
And so they, like moons, they perfectly reflect the light, who reflects the light of the sun. They reflect the light of God perfectly into the world.
Mm-hmm.
They're not God, but they perfectly reflect God. So they manifest God in the world. And Baha'u'llah, he goes on to do a bunch of cool stuff. He leads the community. He writes. Surprising for a founder of a religious movement, we actually have a lot of writings from him.
Oh, good.
Yes. He sends out a bunch of letters. So, because long story short, when the Prophet Muhammad, he is said to have sent, these letters to a bunch of great emperors at his time. Baha'u'llah mimics this, sends out a bunch of letters to, the Pope, Queen Victoria, Tsar Alexander, the Kaiser, Napoleon III, the Shah, the Sultan, all these people. And,
my Uncle Rich.
Exactly.
My mom.
The most important people.
My mom.
Yeah, mama, indeed.
Yeah, mama.
Apparently, what I just found funny is that Queen Victoria, I'm quoting here, replied equivocally, the Tsar promised to investigate further. Napoleon III tore up the tablet he was sent and said that if Baha'u'llah was God, he was too. And the Shah had Baha'u'llah's messenger executed.
I like that. That's got flair.
Yeah.
That's brutal, but that's sort of, that goes hard.
Yeah.
I like that.
It very much gets his point across.
It's very biblical.
Yeah.
It's very that's what you're kind of hoping for.
Right. It's just the messenger has been killed.
I bet there's a little bit of yes.
Yeah.
There, where they're like, okay, that's good for us.
Yeah, some martyrdom.
Nothing really quite marinates a religious movement like a persecution complex.
Exactly.
Especially when it's valid.
Right? No, a valid persecution complex, because they were under the heat in just the Middle East generally, but especially Persia during this time. So
would Shen Yun have made it as far as it has? Were the Falun Gong not persecuted?
I think that if China didn't dislike their founder, they would never have gotten off the ground.
And look at that. Mm-hmm. Look at what persecution has brought us. one of the finest multicultural dance experiences touring the nation. I will mention, I think it's already passed, but
yeah?
I think Shen Yun was here in April.
They definitely were and will be again.
I think April 14th was the last time they were here. Tickets were like, I looked into it because I wanted to go, but tickets were like $60 starting. And I know it's supposed to be life-changing, but I don't know if I have $60 to change my life.
You don't want to see all those poor members of the Falun Gong have their livers taken out.
I could buy about 3 cases of old style with that $60 and take out my own liver.
Okay, fair enough. But yeah, and so what Baha'u'llah was trying to get them to do is basically, renounce their worldly and religious authority and unite as one common humanity. This goes into Baha'u'llah's teachings, which we can get to later.
So he thought, you know what? The best way to do this is through letter. Not to judge, I get it. Like, that's the method of the time, but
it was the 1800s.
Was Queen Victoria going to go, you know what? Yeah. Maybe. You never know. Stranger things have happened.
I mean, that's the thing. I'm just like, hey, strange things really do happen. Like, Yemen was a Jewish monarchy for like 200 years. That just happened, like, randomly.
I don't know how. We'll find a way that relates to Chicago.
Exactly.
And we'll be able to talk about it.
Right. But anywho, this continues and continues and continues. There was a whole bunch of stuff, but he basically spent most of his life, in exile from Persia and the Ottoman Empire, preaching the good word of the Baha'i faith. And eventually, when he died, he was interred in Haifa, in Israel, near the Bab, actually. And that's where the Baha'i community is sort of globally centered today.
Gotcha.
And you might be wondering, okay, so we've gone from, Persia, under the rule of the Shah, to the Ottoman Empire, to Haifa, Israel.
Yep.
When do we get to Chicago?
I don't know. For me, that seems like a perfectly clear line.
Oh, no, of course.
How did that happen? Just asking, as if I didn't know.
That would be Thornton frickin' Chase.
Can we add some?
We'll see.
Some air horns in post.
We'll see. It might be funnier with us talking about them and them never happening.
Put one right here. Okay.
Thornton Chase. All right. Can I describe this man to you?
Paint
for a
a
moment?
picture for me in this audio medium.
All right. Imagine your Gen X spiritual seeking uncle who posts on Facebook way too much. And now imagine that they have the mustache of a walrus and a shockingly good record on race relations for their time.
Yeah, that's Steve, dude.
And you have Thornton Chase. Or Steve.
Yeah, my Uncle Steve, man.
Yeah?
Thornton Chase. Thornton Chase.
Yes.
Thornton. I like this guy. If
Yeah.
he's anything like Steve, then I like Thornton.
Is Steve also a live-action cartoon character?
Unfortunately, no. But what do you mean?
So this man has lived an insane life. Now, Thornton Chase, the way that he winds up sort of establishing the Baha'i community in North America is kind of crazy. And the way that he found himself in that position is so convoluted that it must either be a farce or divine providence.
Great. So like, what time period are we talking about here?
All right, so around here is Thornton was born like late 1800s, and or he's actually born like mid 1800s, and then the Chicago community gets founded like turn of the century into the 1900s. So that's the frame we're working with. And Thornton Chase, so he starts life in Springfield, Massachusetts. He's educated by the Reverend Samuel Francis Smith, the guy who wrote My Country 'Tis of Thee.
Banger.
Indeed. And then, after kicking around Old Mass for a while, he winds up being a commander of a black unit for the Union Army in the Civil War.
Is he a white guy or?
He's a white guy. And because that was a thing where it's like, oh, most of the black units still had white commanders because it is still the 1860s.
It's still baby steps here in
Like,
the U.S., man.
They are in fact fighting slavery at the time, but they were also.
We're not gonna let you be in charge.
No. You can be in the army, but you can't
Whoa.
lead the army.
All right, we're fighting to free the slaves, not let them.
So again, when I say shockingly good track record on
The bar's low. The bar is on
bar's very
the
low.
ground.
Yes, but he did in fact lead one of the first black regiments in the Civil War. They won.
Good.
Spoiler alert for history.
Yeah.
But so then after this, he becomes.
I'm looking ahead.
Yeah.
In the script.
Yes.
Or in our notes.
Uh-huh.
And I'm just saying, this guy.
Yes.
Is like ideal Chicagoland.
Oh yeah.
His life story. I'm just skimming. Is a mess.
Yes.
Let's get into it.
Okay. I can do a somewhat truncated version because it is a insane resume.
Yeah, hit me with it.
Okay.
I want it to wash over me.
Mm-hmm. So this man goes from, Baptist family, Springfield, Massachusetts, leads a black unit in the Civil War to victory, then goes back to Springfield. Now he's a salesman. And he's like, he's doing his thing. He starts getting into the lumber business, and that fails. So then he moves to Boston, and he becomes an actor and a singer.
The perfect logical next step.
Yup! Failed lumber businessman? Great. Time for showbiz. Then, while he's in Boston, he undergoes a series of profound mystical experiences, which then give him a new purpose in life to try to seek truth.
Great. Okay.
Yes.
I'm seeing the religion thing now.
Mm-hmm. And so then, moves to Green Bay, Wisconsin.
And he follows religion.
He becomes a school teacher.
Okay. Oh, all right.
And then he moves to Chicago.
Okay, and he
becomes a somewhat successful actor, actually.
Okay.
Playing in a few popular venues.
Do you know where?
It's this old theater.
McKinkey's?
Something like that. I don't think it's around anymore, but it was one of the biggest houses back in the day.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's a tangent.
That's a tangent, yeah. Anyway, then he's in Chicago. Where do you think he does next?
He pursues Baha'i.
He goes to Kansas to become a teacher.
Again, back to teaching?
Yep. And then he moves to Colorado.
It does the religious stuff.
So, funny thing is that during this entire time, he was married with kids. And his family was back in Springfield.
What? You could just do that then.
Yeah.
Like, where's dad? And mom's like, dude.
He's either a school teacher in Wisconsin or an actor in Chicago.
I don't know.
And as one would expect, she divorces him. And this apparently devastates him.
What?
It's just like, apparently he didn't see it coming.
He's like, oh gosh. Oh, why would she leave me? I know we're 1,000 miles away in 1880.
Yep.
And it would take me 3 weeks to get back to Springfield. But
Yeah.
why?
But why would she leave me? So he's like, and so then he's like, he's up in the Rocky Mountains in Colorado. And he got there, by the way, because he decided to pursue a silver and gold rush.
Naturally.
Happening in the Rockies. But he goes from, attempting to find gold to meeting his second wife. Moved to Pueblo, Colorado. They're married. He just becomes a man about town. He directs a bunch of different performing troupes.
My God, he's back
he
to
becomes
acting.
a published poet.
What?
Including a lot of religious poetry, talking about the love of God. And then he moves to Denver. And he goes from becoming a Baptist to a Swedenborgian.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. very different, strange religious movement, but
Which we'll get to, because that has a huge history in Chicago.
Fun, to my knowledge, not related to this man, but yes.
Yeah, but I mean, like, Daniel Burnham was a Swedenborgian.
Oh!
Which is why he ended up moving here.
That'll be interesting.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting to talk about.
I love me and Danny B.
Yeah. Anyway, so he becomes a very dedicated Swedenborgian, but then the church that he was at got in a bunch of like internal disputes, and after all of this, he's just like, you know what? I am done with Christian churches.
So not that dedicated.
So he was basically. Have you ever like joined in an organization, very driven by their like stated mission and ideals? Then you get there, and everyone's just complaining about other people in their club.
I believe that is just known as the theater industry.
Exactly.
Great.
And so
I get it now.
Yep. And so he leaves that, continues trying to find meaning in life. He becomes a journalist, an actor in Denver again, and a music store owner. And eventually, he gets hired as, very natural progression, a life insurance salesman.
Well, this guy knows a thing or two about life.
Indeed he does. And so then, he's apparently very good at this, as one might expect from someone who spent their entire life
shysting about.
Exactly.
Okay.
And trying to be an actor. And so he gets promoted to regional manager, and so he moves to their California office. While he's in California, he publishes like a pamphlet that uses a bunch of like religious stories from like folklore and the Bible to inform people why they should buy life insurance.
Wow.
Yeah. Then, he's so good at this, his pamphlet's a success, he's made the manager of everything to, like, the west of Appalachia. So
he's landed. So he's kind of just forgotten about this whole religion thing, other than using it for his advertisements.
Right. But then, when he becomes, manager of half the U.S., he gets moved out to that headquarters in Chicago. And he arrives in Chicago just in time for the World Columbian Exposition.
Oh no, that's the best thing that ever happened here.
Uh-huh. The first World's Fair, one of the stars on the Chicago flag. And this man...
the first one here.
The first one here.
Second one. Globally.
Second one globally. First one in Chicago. The third star on the Chicago flag.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And so this man arrives just in time for the kickoff of the World's Fair. And he also at this
Who won the coin toss? Sorry. I'd recuse myself. Continue your story.
He gets there, and just so happens that at this time is the convening, the first ever convening of the World Parliament of Religions.
Ooh. Do they vote on who's right?
Exactly. They basically get together, they say a bunch of shared goals, they work towards like greater peace and understanding. Like, it's a very nice body. It's as close as world religions gets to the UN and just as effective.
And if you want to, I just know this from my tours, I know that this happened at the Art Institute.
Oh, yeah.
What is now the Art Institute of Chicago was the building which housed the World Parliament of Religion.
It's very cool.
It was also the one of the backup storage places for the fine art exhibit.
Oh.
Yeah, and the first Chicago elevated rail went from Jackson Park up to the Loop in order to bring visitors both downtown to Jackson Park to see the World Columbian Exposition and up to see the art.
That's very cool. Interesting connection to Jackson Park. Small one, but we'll actually get to that. Interesting with this whole story. But, this is the first time that, there's a representative of the Baha'i faith who's there, who is, and it's the first time that we have on record of, like, the name of this tradition being spoken just in the Western Hemisphere.
Cool.
Yeah. There's some, members, who are like at the Parliament, who are at the World's Fair, are leading some classes, teaching people about the tradition, how it got founded. Yeah.
Luckily, they found the most impressionable, self-driven man in the Western freaking hemisphere.
Yes.
Because they went to Chicago, baby.
Oh, yeah,
They
baby.
went to Chicago.
They went to Chicago.
The great city of Chicago.
We have Chicago.
We just have the shystiest,
Yes.
most effective people. Did you know that the city of Chicago has not operated with a functioning charter
Wait, what?
since 1870?
I'm sorry. That was before the fire.
Yes. We are operating on the same document since before the fire.
What?
It's because the state of Illinois passed a law that reduced the amount of home rule charters that you can have. So it's called the Cities and Towns Ordinance.
Yeah.
So we are governed by the same law and restricted by the same law that governs and restricts the powers that Cairo, Illinois has.
Oh my.
Seems a little out of place. Maybe just a bit. Continue about this mad lad.
So this mad lad takes these classes, and he's like, he loves it. He loves it. I don't know. It's like, take Unitarians and turn them up to 11. This man just got so much zeal from this, and he's like, you know what? They're right. I'm gonna become a Baha'i now. And so this man, what do you think this man does? Who spent his entire life running around the country as a performer and salesman and teacher. He becomes what St. Patrick was to Ireland, he becomes to the Baha'i community of North America.
So he gets drunk and fights snakes?
I
don't know what St. Patrick did.
Not too far off.
Okay.
But basically, he goes around, basically creates this community. He's the first person to be permanently a Baha'i. Some people got, inducted before him, but they left. He is the first person to be a committed Baha'i in the West.
Awesome.
And he gets a bunch of people in Chicago and around the country, really involved in this. He meets at this point, Baha'u'llah's grandson is now running the community. And so, he meets with him. He gets personally approved of by this guy.
Great.
Imagine if, I don't know, which would be the equivalent of I don't know, St. Peter is personally you've got what it takes, dude. You can lead this community.
I can?
Yeah, you can.
Wow.
Yours are the kingdom and the power and the glory, my guy. And so, this is why Chicago became something of an epicenter for the Baha'i community within the Americas generally.
Thornton
frickin' Chase. Yeah. And so...
What a match.
Oh, yeah. But the temple.
Yes, this whole episode is about this temple.
This beautiful, beautiful building. It was designed by a Quebecois or a Quebecer, a French Canadian.
You really said that like it was a slur.
Because to them it is.
It is.
And I want them to know it. His name is Louis Bourgeois, and he designed this building. Initially, the cornerstone for what would become the Baha'i Temple was laid in 1912. Now, this was after, basically, Thornton was like, hey, Abdullah Baha, grandson of Baha'u'llah, can we, found a temple? Because there had been one founded before in what is today Turkmenistan.
Weird poll.
Yeah. Basically, this is when it was still a part of Soviet Russia, and they were basically like, no, you can't have it anymore. And they turned it into an art museum, and then it was destroyed by an earthquake.
That's very Soviet. Just sort of tragic in a really nihilistic way.
Yeah. So that was the first Baha'i temple in the world, dead and gone. So the Chicago one was the first one to be approved after that. So it is the oldest Baha'i Temple, still standing. Abdullah Baha approves, and they were kind of shopping around for like where to put it. Initially, they were considering Jackson Park on the south side.
Excellent, yeah.
Yeah, beautiful place.
Very.
But there was some like land use stuff, and then they were actually considering Evanston proper. But again, land use stuff. Oh, where would we be able to get the real estate?
Right.
So eventually, they were able to find a plot of land because they wanted it to be secluded, like quiet enough, away from like big city noise. And so a place that they were able to find that kind of location and find the real estate for it was in Wilmette after shopping around a couple locations. So it wasn't their first choice, but they knew that they wanted it to be around Chicago.
Right.
So then, yeah, like I said, cornerstone late in 1912. Abdullah Baha, global leader of the community, is there for the laying of this cornerstone in Chicagoland. The rest of it doesn't start beginning construction until 1920, actually, because Louis Bourgeois is like running designs for the approval of Abdullah Baha, who's like out in like the Middle East, and he's in Chicago.
8 years.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
8 years to get these designs approved and finalized. They finally do. They start constructing in 1920, so when they're actually like starting the build. Apparently it was very funny at the time because a bunch of rumors started popping up about like what this weird construction project up on the North Shore is. There were some people who thought that they were trying to store a live white whale. Some people thought that it was like a refueling station for like, U.S. captured, German U-boats from the First World War that they were just keeping in Lake Michigan.
People just made stuff up then.
They really did.
They didn't have TikTok, so they had to keep themselves occupied.
Basically. So rumors, that was the TikTok of its time.
Imagine being that guy. Like, hey, Jim, what do you think they're building there? And he goes, it's a tank for a white whale. All right, Jim.
I don't think a whale would fit in there.
Vertically,
sure.
it couldn't really do much.
Yeah,
But
it would just...
physically, it'd fit.
It could fit. It couldn't thrive.
It could not survive.
A fun thing about this...
Just a whale coffin.
It's like, and here we have the sarcophagus.
Why the hell did we do that? They get done with it. They put the whale and it dies, and they're like, yeah, we should have predicted that one.
Yep, it's a reliquary for Moby Dick.
Yeah. Jesus.
A fun history rhyming part of this is that the superstructure, so sort of like the outside of the building, was constructed in time for the Second World's Fair in Chicago, the Century of Progress, in 1933.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Great. That is the 4th star on the Chicago flag.
Indeed it is. And so both stars, both of the latter 2 stars on the Chicago flag have ties to the founding of the Baha'i community.
So according to the Chicago municipal flag,
yes,
the Baha'i Temple gets 2 stars.
Yeah.
Excellent.
2 out of 4. Not a bad ranking.
Not bad. Yeah. The other 2 for reference is the founding of Fort Dearborn in 1803, as well as the Great Chicago Fire in 1871.
Exactly. And so, this, but everything, the whole campus, the inside, everything is finally complete on May 2nd, 1953. That's when it gets officially consecrated. And so you have like, the current leader of the Baha'i community's wife.
Because the old guy died.
Yeah.
It took so damn long.
Right. And so like the leader at that time's then wife, I want to say, or she may have been the leader. Lines of succession are confusing. However,
yeah, if the whole issue of Islam is like succession crisis, the apple don't fall far.
Yeah. After this, the Baha'i community would kind of default to a federalist system after this person.
Just vote.
Just vote representatives. But the last, to my knowledge, like the last individual leader attended, this consecration in North America. There were there were a bunch of people here. There were Supreme Court justices who were at this. Like, it was a big deal. But so it gets founded, gets consecrated, and it stands to this day.
And it's gorgeous.
Yep.
So it has 9 sides. 9 is an important number.
Yes. So it's an important number, basically because it's the last, kind of because like 9 is the last number, because 10 is just 1 and 0.
Right.
And so 9 is in the Baha'i tradition is kind of like a symbol of like completeness, of wholeness.
Right. It's also like a trinity of trinities as well.
Yeah.
And that has something to do with it.
Right. And so you have this kind of like, arithmancy kind of stuff going on with it, like numerology, but it's very symbolically important.
Yeah, and it's sort of adorned with symbols of all the major religions because it's sort of Unitarian in that way.
Right.
It's made of white. I think it's not marble, but it's some sort of like corrugated material, like a composite.
Yeah.
Kind of like concrete with like white rubble in it. It's very beautiful.
Yes, it's like something to that effect. And it's a beautiful building. If you've ever like been past it on like if you're ever so fortunate to be like passing by like at night, it looks like the way that the moon glows.
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. It sort of shocks you there's like a curve. There's a couple curves on the road around it on Sheridan. And it sort of shocks you as you round the curve.
Yeah.
You're like, all right, nice house, nice house, nice house. Whoa! Is that an egg?
Well, because like it's so strange because like you go from like, okay, like suburban Chicago, we're in Wilmette, and then the roads turn into cobblestones.
Yeah.
And then you look up and there's a beautiful like garden, and then you look up even higher and there's this like temple made of Masonic lace. It's crazy.
It's very out of place.
But
is that the only one?
And it's not the only one. It is the oldest, but not the only. It is one of 8 what are known as continental temples.
Okay.
So
like a breakfast. There's like eggs and waffles. What else is in a
waffles, and various other geographic regions of the planet.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So within the Americas, there are 3 in total in North and South America. There is the Baha'i Temple of Chicago. That's North America. Central America has a temple in Panama City, and then South America has a temple in Chile.
Okay.
You also have one in Samoa to kind of cover the Pacific Island region.
Right, so people are just commuting there.
Exactly, by boat.
By outrigger canoe.
Exactly. You might, I don't know, paraglide.
Right.
Someone's pulling the boat. The European one is in Germany. There's one in India, which kind of takes on the whole of Asia.
India just likes to have everyone. It's like Pokemon cards.
Exactly. Well, because they've got like the beautiful temples, like they've got the Golden Temple for Sikhism, they've got all the temples for Hinduism.
There's Zoroastrians.
They've
St. Thomas Christian.
The St. Thomas Christian, beautiful buildings.
Yeah.
No, they got the Baha'i, and they also have
Well, for the listeners at home, Ben just sort of undulated his arms in a most shocking way.
I'm trying to think of the one that one like Muslim ruler built in India, the Taj Mahal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Islam too.
Yeah.
Big in India.
Well, it was. We don't have to get into partition. It's a whole thing.
It's still the second largest individual religion.
Yes, but it is a long history.
It's a whole thing. Anyway, and then also one in Australia for Oceania, and one in Uganda for Africa.
Right? Yeah, I like that. I like a set.
Right.
I like a set of stuff.
Yes. So there are 8 continental temples.
That is frustrating.
Yeah.
Because their whole thing is 9.
I believe that they're trying to build one somewhere else in Asia, because the one in India then would be for like the subcontinent.
Right.
Like South Asia. I believe that they're trying to build another one.
That makes
elsewhere.
I like a set. This is what I'm saying.
Or
you
you could also take it as the ninth being the Lost Temple in Turkmenistan.
Oh.
A sort of...
Or
Or...
Antarctica. Maybe the whole thing's a temple. Think about it.
I like the way you think. The southernmost church in the world is in Antarctica.
What's it called?
Our Lady of the Snows.
All right, that's a little on the nose.
It's in the Argentinian claim. Because, of course...
What, like half the continent?
Right? Like, did you know that Argentina... it is the law that you cannot produce a map of Argentina that does not show their Antarctic claim.
I like that.
Yeah.
That really makes it like a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because when they find oil there, that's going to be good for them.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we'll see. They tried it with what was the Faroe Islands?
The Falklands?
Falklands.
Or the Malvinas. Whichever you so desire.
I meant the Falklands.
Or Malvinas.
Yeah, fair. Oh, man.
We have different names for it.
Yeah. In any case, the interesting about the Baha'i Temple in Chicago.
It'd be crazy if Argentina did try it. If they're going up to the Faroe Islands near Britain. Like, how do you like it? How do you like it?
Are you like it now?
Okay.
But, yeah. But they say with a mix of Italian and Spanish.
Like, why'd you pack so much beef? Don't
question it. We didn't think there would be good food here.
They like beef in Argentina.
They really do.
I don't know. It's odd. They're one of the largest beef-consuming countries in the world.
It's like, oh, who are those cattle ranchers? They've got like a fun, cool name.
Oh yeah, I don't know the name.
You know who we're talking about. But anyway, the Baha'i Temple. The funny thing about it is that there are only about in Chicagoland there are about 4,000 members of the Baha'i community, but the temple itself receives like 250,000 visitors a year.
That's a low retention rate. Not to criticize. I'm not trying to criticize. I know a tenet of the Baha'i faith is that they don't proselytize.
Right.
So that might account for it. Mm-hmm. But that's a shockingly low number here in Chicago for having the main temple.
It's interesting because like the temples are sort of meant to act as sort of like the they're like the mother church. It's like, every other Baha'i community throughout the country, throughout North America, sort of receives their sort of like their center point, their capital is the Baha'i Temple.
Gotcha.
DC has like a fairly low population, but it's still the capital.
I see what you mean.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And so throughout all of North America, that is where, not literally, but it's where they turn to.
Gotcha.
And so that temple sort of like serves like that purpose in every geographic region. And despite not proselytizing, they have still about 8 million members globally.
Wow.
Which is pretty meteoric growth for a new world religion.
Yeah, that's roughly comparable to Judaism.
Yeah.
There's more Jews in the world, but...
Yes. But in terms of like the...
Jews have had a
long time to accrue the extra...
6,000 year head start. Yeah. Roughly.
And I think they have about another 10 million on the Baha'is.
Oh, really? It's 18?
I believe it's 18 million.
Oh, wow. I'm way off then. I'm just spreading misinformation on
You're
this podcast.
fine. But,
see, well, of course, my role on this podcast is to be the uninformed audience proxy. So I'm, we're
doing
learning.
A great job.
Thank you.
But yeah, and so about 8 million members globally for a religion that really doesn't proselytize. Their idea is sort of like leading by example. But in addition to the number 9 being important, there are also an important 3 in Baha'i. Mm-hmm. The 3 unities. The unity of the Creator, the unity of religions, and the unity of humanity.
Okay.
Yeah. Unity of religions is a staple in religion,
Yeah.
There is no God but God of Islam. I am the Lord your God, you shall have no other gods before me. The unity of the Creator is sort of the idea of just like the true oneness of God in that sort of like supreme ultimate oneness kind of way, where it's like, every other ascribed power, it finds its unity within God, which sort of leads to the unity of religions.
Right.
As I said before, a prophet in the Baha'i faith is called a manifestation of God. But it doesn't just stop with the Bab and Baha'u'llah. Because among the other manifestations of God, they count the Prophet Muhammad, which makes sense. They emerged out of Shia Islam. They count Jesus, Moses, Abraham, Zoroaster.
Okay.
The great peacemaker.
Who is that?
He is a sort of the religious figure who's one of the founders of the Iroquois Confederation.
Oh, nice get.
Yeah, as well as certain manifestations of Krishna, I believe.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and so they have and the Buddha.
What a group! That's a good barbecue.
Oh yeah.
Well, I guess no pork, but
No pork. It's do it like the Sikhs, vegetarian barbecue, so everyone can have something.
right.
But they basically, and there's not a defined list of these things, but it's basically like they will, for the most part, acknowledge any, the prophets of any, major religion or major group are sort of considered manifestations of God because it's like, they shared a message that was perfectly reflective of God, for these people for this time, and it's just sort of like, Baha'u'llah is the one who gave the most up to date, the most complete message out of anyone.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That makes sense. It's sort of just like it's a patch notes for religion.
It's your religious software update.
Yeah.
So it's like nothing wrong with Christianity. You're just running on some
You're
old
running
servers.
Windows 95.
Exactly. It's like we gotta get you up to speed, up to the modern age.
This is Windows 11.
Yeah. And so that's a sort of unity of religions, anywhere that someone points to God or their idea of God finds that its fullness in God. There are not many competing ideas of God. People are just many blind men around the elephant feeling different things. It's the one God, and all these religions are ultimately pointing in that same direction.
Gotcha.
And so, which then brings them to the unity of humanity, because one of the big things that Baha'u'llah championed against, and that many Baha'is have since, are divisions within humanity. So you had a lot of Baha'i people were very involved in the civil rights movement in the U.S. because racism and xenophobia are sort of viewed as kind of the chief evils of the world. Gotcha. That Baha'u'llah called himself a physician of the world. And so he sort of viewed it as his responsibility to remove these sorts of societal cancers. So racism, which divides people, or bigotry, othering in general, and sort of everyone finding their common humanity as one people.
That's a very sustainable view. Mm-hmm. It doesn't lead to a lot of violent conquest, does it?
Right. It's not much reason to go on crusade if you're we are all friends. It is literally core tenet. We got the three big teachings, and one of them is we're the same.
Right.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. And like you said, major world religions are adorned on the sides of their temple in the sort of masonry and the sort of a stone cutting of sides of the temple. You see the the 9-pointed star of the Baha'i tradition. Then you also see a Star of David. You see a star and crescent. You see a cross. You see the specifically Asian religious swastika, which represents many traditions ranging from Jainism to Hinduism to Buddhism.
This building was completed in 1933. Same year as the Nazis, but
it had not yet taken on that connotation.
Yeah.
The superstructure was already done. But
we can't change it now.
Right. It's so pretty. And it is pretty. Cool thing about the temple is that there's no clergy in the Baha'i tradition. Different members of the congregation will lead daily prayers. So these daily prayers, it'll only be something like a reading from a sacred scripture or the writings of Baha'u'llah. It can be sung, but there's not instruments. It's very simple.
And my understanding too is that it's open. Like, you don't have to be Baha'i to go in, right?
Right. Of those 250,000 visitors a year, most of them aren't Baha'i. And they actively invite you. Anyone can come and just meditate, pray, just have a place of quiet.
So if you want, for a listener, if you want a nice, easy, low stakes, beautiful religious field trip here in Chicago, the Baha'i Temple seems like a pretty good option.
Yeah,
it's off the Linden stop on the Purple Line if you're getting there from the CTA.
Mm-hmm. It's not too far from the campus of Northwestern University, and enjoy.
It's off of Sheridan, as I mentioned. It's right by the yacht club up there, the Wilmette Yacht Club. Great view for them.
It really is gorgeous, and stop into the beautiful building. They've got a visitor center if you want a more complete history of the Baha'i tradition.
They're very nice there. I've taken a tour. Genuinely very kind people, interested in talking to you if you want to talk. Also interested in leaving you alone if you don't want to talk.
Yeah. Very, very hospitable.
There's a golf course across the river from it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. It's I think it's a 9-hole golf course.
Imagine the day, sail on the yachts in the morning, play a few rounds of golf, stop at the Baha'i Temple to pray.
That's great.
Yeah.
Oh, well met.
Well met. Paradise. That's why it's the furthest north you can get.
Yeah, I guess so. It's where it turns around. Linden. I feel like a lot of people don't even take the Purple Line.
That's true. It's not the least used line, but it is technically the shortest.
Right. Okay, in terms of length.
Yellow Line has fewer stops, but its track is a bit longer.
Yeah, but there's 3 stops on the Yellow Line.
Yep, and one of them is Howard.
That hardly counts.
Yeah. Purple Line does run express, though, and so I guess it uses more track during that time.
You could count it as going all the way down to the loop.
Yeah, depends on the time of day.
So it's sort of in a superposition of length.
Exactly.
It always ends up at transit.
Yeah.
Which is a good segue into me thanking you all for coming to visit the CTA once again. We hope your ride was cleaner and filled with less smoke than the real CTA. And we hope you learned a thing or two about the Baha'i Temple. Ben, thank you so much for explaining this for me. This was a really good deep dive. I hope I learned a lot.
Yeah, no.
Thornton Chase.
This
is a great Chicago hero.
Indeed.
Among the likes of George Wellington Streeter and George Washington Gale Ferris and even the Billy Goat from the Billy Goat Tavern. He's up there.
From the scarred remains of Meigs Field to the beautiful plot of land up in Wilmette, Chicago has a wonderful history of con artists creating a beautiful city.
With big hearts. They all have big hearts.
They really do.
And a love
at a soup kitchen.
Did he really?
He did.
Well, Ben, this has been lovely. How can the viewers reach you, listen to you, follow you?
Yes, I'm Benjamin Juris. You can find me on social media at JurisB101 or at my website, benjaminjuris.com.
And I've been Andy Johnston. You can find my Instagram at andy.c.johnston or my website, andy-johnston.com, if you're hip with the lingo. Well, Ben, a meaty handshake for the viewers.
And may your trip to Linden be free of smoke and full of bliss.
And may the road rise up to meet you. Thanks for listening, folks.